My parents sold my company for $1.2 billion. And then they fired me. Yeah, that actually happened. But what they didn't know was that I owned the code, and that one detail changed everything. Let's rewind to when I was 17. I was not the cool kid. I wasn't going to parties. I wasn't playing sports. And I wasn't chasing girls. I was chasing bugs, the programming kind, not the insect kind. My parents owned a logistics company, semi-trucks, warehouses, pallet scanners, the boring stuff that makes the world move. They always hoped I'd go to business school and eventually take over. But instead, I spent most of my time in my room, hunched over multiple screens, drinking cold coffee, trying to train machine learning models to behave. To my parents, computers were office tools. To me, they were an entire universe. Around that time, I got obsessed with routing efficiency. Yeah, I know, weird obsession. But I loved the idea of saving time and fuel using real-time data. So I started building an algorithm that optimized delivery fleets, basically telling trucks where to go and when, so companies could save money and time. I didn't build it for money. I built it because it felt like a puzzle I needed to solve. One evening my dad asked, "What exactly are you doing out there all day?" I said, "Saving companies millions of dollars." He laughed and said, "Sure kid, and I'm the king of Sweden." But eventually he got curious. So I did a small demo for him and his operations manager. Halfway through the demo, the manager looked at my dad and said, "Sir, if this actually works, this could replace half our route planners." My dad stopped laughing. Over the next 2 months, I improved the algorithm, added prediction models, integrated APIs, and built a dashboard. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. My dad ended up investing $50,000 and we formed a new company. I didn't care. I wasn't thinking ownership. I was thinking innovation. We hired salespeople, pitched to logistics firms, and within a year we had contracts with 3 major companies. Revenue went from 0 to 4 million. Suddenly I wasn't just the weird coding kid anymore. I was the CTO of a fast-growing tech company. But here's where it got messy. My parents treated the company like it belonged to them, which technically, on paper, it did. They handled meetings, finances, negotiations, hiring. I handled the actual product. My mom started introducing my dad as the founder of our groundbreaking logistics software company, and people would clap like he had coded machine learning models in a warehouse at midnight. One time I corrected her, and afterwards she said in the car, "Honey, nobody cares who typed the code. They care who built the company." I stared out the window thinking, but there is no company without the code. By 19, we had offices in 3 countries. We flew to Zurich because a European investor group was interested in buying 25% of the company. During the meeting, they kept asking me technical questions because I clearly understood the product better than anyone else in the room. My parents didn't like that. Afterwards, my mom pulled me aside and whispered, "Don't embarrass your father by acting like you run the place." I wasn't trying to run anything. I was just explaining how the system worked. The deal closed at a $200 million valuation. Suddenly my 20% didn't feel so symbolic anymore. But the more successful we became, the more obvious it was that my parents and I lived in different business realities. I slept on floors in data centers, survived airports on vending machine food, and rewrote code on planes using spotty Wi-Fi. My parents flew business class, stayed in hotels with marble lobbies and pillow menus, and sent emails from rooftop bars. Sometimes CEOs of partner companies would literally ask me, "Who's actually in charge? Because you're the only one who understands how this stuff works," and I'd just say, "We're a family business," as if that magically explained everything. By the time I turned 22, our system was so good that companies started calling us the Tesla Autopilot of logistics. Investors loved us, customers loved us, employees loved the mission. The board loved one thing, exits. Then the offer came. A conglomerate in Singapore wanted to buy the entire company for $1.2 billion. When the CFO showed me the number, my brain froze. It was surreal seeing that many zeros attached to something that once lived as messy folders in my bedroom computer. I told them we shouldn't sell. We were scaling aggressively, competitors were behind, and we had new features in development that could double our value in 2 years. My dad didn't agree. He slammed his hand on the conference table and shouted, "We built this company to make money, not to feed your ego." I said, "I'm not thinking about ego. I'm thinking about growth. We are not done." He shot back, "We are done. We built it. We cash out." "That's how business works," I said. "Dad, I built the product. Without it there is no business," he snapped. "With our money." I had heard that line 100 times. It never got less annoying. The board voted. 5 in favor of selling, 2 against. My parents combined had 80% and controlled the outcome. They signed. I told myself, fine, at least I'll still lead the tech side under the new conglomerate, right? Wrong. The very same afternoon, HR called me into a depressing little office that looked like a dentist waiting room from 1998. The HR lady said in this robotic tone, "We have to inform you that your position as CTO has been terminated effective immediately due to restructuring." I stared at her and said, "You're firing me from my own company." She just said, "I'm very sorry. My dad texted me later that night. It's just business. Don't make it emotional, not personal." Funny how the people who make it personal are always the ones who say it's not. For 3 days I shut off my screens and just sat in silence. I didn't know who I was without work. I felt robbed, not of money, but of purpose. Then on day 4, something happened that flipped everything. My lawyer called. He asked one question: "Did you ever assign your intellectual property rights to the company?" I blinked and said, "No, I licensed it." "Why?" He said, "Because if you never transferred IP ownership, then legally, you own the code." The company was only licensing it. My heart started beating like I'd just sprinted up a mountain. I pulled up the original contract we signed when I was 17, the one I barely paid attention to. It said, "Technology is licensed to the company from the developer meaning me." My parents had sold a company whose core technology they didn't actually own. They sold the building, the brand, the customers. But the engine that powered it, that still belonged to me. I drafted a 3-page notice, clean, cold, legal. I revoked the license effective in 90 days unless renegotiated directly with the rights holder me. The acquiring conglomerate went into full meltdown mode. Their lawyers emailed, their engineers panicked. Their executives flew in meanwhile. My parents were completely excluded because the acquisition was already finalized. They got their money and walked away. They had no seat at this table anymore. The conglomerate asked for a meeting. The room was full of suits worth more than my car. They tried to intimidate me at first, saying things like, "We assumed IP was included." I simply said, "Assumptions don't hold up in court." They tried saying, "We'll sue." My lawyer calmly replied, "On what basis?" "The contract is explicit. He retains ownership." Then they switched strategies. They tried to hire me back. They offered titles, salaries, bonuses, stock options, everything. But I wasn't interested in being an employee again. I said one condition: if you want the tech, you buy it from me directly. No parents, no boards, no middleman. They agreed faster than I expected. 2 weeks later, we finalized a new deal. I sold full intellectual property rights, not for $1.2 billion, but for $1.8 billion. Why? Because now they weren't buying a company. They were buying the core technology that powered it. They rehired me, but this time as Chief Innovation Officer, reporting directly to the conglomerate CEO, with full creative control and no family politics. My parents, they weren't included in any of it. Their exit was already closed. They got exactly what they negotiated for, nothing more. When my dad found out, he called me and said, "You went behind our backs." I replied, "No, Dad, you fired me. I just finished my work." He stayed silent. After that, I didn't feel angry anymore. I actually felt peaceful. Because I learned something massive at 23 years old. Ownership beats titles, knowledge beats money. And never underestimate the quiet kid with the code. So yeah. My parents sold my company for $1.2 billion and fired me. They forgot I owned the code, and that changed everything.